The moving truck pulled away from the curb just as the sky began to darken, and Kelley stood in the doorway of her new apartment with boxes stacked around her like a cardboard fortress. She had sworn she would never move again after the last time, but life had other plans. The job offer from the design firm downtown had been too good to pass up, even if it meant leaving behind everything familiar and starting over in a city where she knew absolutely no one. She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand and surveyed the chaos around her. The apartment was small but charming, with hardwood floors that creaked in all the right places and windows that looked out onto a tree-lined street. It was the kind of place she had always imagined herself living in, back when she was still a student dreaming of making it as an interior designer. Now, at 26, that dream was finally within reach. A loud thud from the apartment next door made her jump. She heard what sounded like furniture being moved, followed by a muffled curse. Deanna smiled to herself. At least she was not the only one dealing with the chaos of rearranging a living space. She made a mental note to introduce herself to her neighbors once she had unpacked enough to look presentable. The evening passed in a blur of unpacking and organizing. By midnight, she had managed to set up her bedroom and part of the living room. Her muscles ached, and her clothes were covered in dust, but there was something satisfying about seeing her belongings find new homes in this unfamiliar space. She collapsed onto her newly assembled bed and fell asleep almost instantly. The next morning, Deanna woke to the smell of fresh coffee drifting through her window. She stretched and padded into the kitchen, still half asleep, to start her own pot. As she waited for it to brew, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Curious, she peeked through the peephole and saw a tall man locking the door to the apartment next to hers. He was dressed casually in jeans and a navy sweater, his dark hair slightly tousled. There was something confident about the way he moved, an easy grace that caught her attention. Before she could think better of it, Deanna opened her door. "Hi there," she called out. The man turned, and she found herself looking into a pair of striking blue eyes. He was handsome in a way that seemed almost unfair, with sharp features and a strong jawline. But what struck her most was the warmth of his smile when he saw her. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep and pleasant. "You must be the new neighbor. I heard the moving yesterday." "That was me," Deanna admitted, suddenly aware that she was still in her pajamas with her hair pulled into a messy bun. "I am Deanna Kelley." "Owen Sinclair," he replied, extending his hand. His handshake was firm but not crushing. "Welcome to the building. How are you settling in?" "Slowly but surely," she said with a laugh. "I think I underestimated how much stuff I actually own. Are you heading out?" "Just grabbing breakfast before I head into the office," Owen said. "There is a great bakery 2 blocks down if you are looking for recommendations. Best croissants in the city." "I will have to check it out," Deanna said. "Thanks for the tip." "Anytime," Owen said. He hesitated for a moment as if he wanted to say something else but then seemed to think better of it. "I should get going. It was nice meeting you, Deanna. You too, Owen." She watched him walk down the hallway, surprised by the flutter in her chest. It had been a long time since anyone had caught her attention like that. But she pushed the thought aside. She had just moved here, and the last thing she needed was to develop a crush on her neighbor. Besides, a man like that probably had a girlfriend, or a wife, maybe even both for all she knew. The following days were consumed by work. Deanna threw herself into her new job at the design firm, determined to prove that they had made the right choice in hiring her. Her boss, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, had high standards and was not afraid to voice her opinions. But Deanna appreciated the honesty. She learned more in those first few days than she had in months at her previous job. She kept running into Owen in the hallway. It seemed like their schedules aligned in the strangest ways. They would bump into each other at the mailboxes, or she would hear his footsteps just as she was leaving for work in the morning. Each time, they would exchange pleasantries, and Diana found herself looking forward to these brief encounters more than she wanted to admit. One evening, about 2 weeks after she had moved in, Diana was struggling with a particularly stubborn piece of furniture. She had ordered a bookshelf online, confident that she could assemble it herself. But the instructions might as well have been written in ancient Greek, and she was ready to throw the whole thing out the window. A knock on her door interrupted her internal rant. She opened it to find Owen standing there, looking concerned. "Sorry to bother you," he said, "but I heard some concerning noises through the wall. Just wanted to make sure everything was okay." Diana felt her cheeks heat up. "Everything is fine. I am just fighting with furniture and losing." Owen peered past her and saw the chaos of parts and screws scattered across her living room floor. A grin spread across his face. "Need a hand?" "I could not ask you to do that," Diana protested, even though the offer was incredibly tempting. "You are not asking. I am offering," Owen said. "Besides, I am pretty good at this kind of thing. It would take 2 minutes." It took more than 2 minutes, but not by much. Diana watched in admiration as Owen efficiently sorted through the pieces, reading the instructions with a practiced eye. His hands moved with confidence, tightening screws and slotting boards together as if he had done it 1,000 times before. "You really are good at this," Diana observed, handing him a screwdriver when he needed it. "I had a lot of practice in college," Owen said. "My roommates and I were always buying cheap furniture and having to put it together. I became the designated assembler." "Well, I appreciate the help," Diana said. "Can I at least offer you a beer or something? I think I have some in the fridge." "A beer sounds great," Owen agreed. They sat on her couch once the bookshelf was complete, bottles of beer in hand. Diana felt herself relaxing in his presence, the initial awkwardness fading into something more comfortable. "So what do you do for work?" she asked. "You mentioned an office earlier." "I run a company," Owen said, and there was something evasive in his tone that made Diana curious. "It keeps me pretty busy. What about you?" "I am an interior designer," Diana said. "I just started at a firm downtown. It is my dream job, honestly. I have wanted to do this since I was a kid rearranging furniture in my dollhouse." Owen laughed at that, a genuine sound that made Diana smile. "I can picture that. You seem like someone who knows what they want." "I try," Diana said, "though it took me a while to get here." There were a lot of detours along the way. "The detours are what make it interesting," Owen said. "If everything went according to plan, life would be pretty boring." They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Diana learned that Owen had grown up in the suburbs, the youngest of 3 brothers. He loved hiking and had a weakness for action movies, the more ridiculous the better. He asked about her life too, and she found herself telling him about her childhood in a small town, her close relationship with her younger sister, and her terrible habit of starting craft projects she never finished. When Owen finally left, Diana sat on her couch feeling lighter than she had in weeks. There was something about him that put her at ease, a kindness beneath the confident exterior. She told herself not to read too much into it. They were just neighbors being friendly, nothing more. But over the next few weeks, those friendly encounters became the highlights of Diana's days. They started having coffee together on Saturday mornings, meeting at the bakery Owen had recommended. He was always punctual, usually arriving a few minutes early with a newspaper tucked under his arm. Diana would show up with her hair still damp from the shower, drawn by the promise of good conversation and even better pastries. "I cannot believe you have never seen The Princess Bride," Owen said one morning, shaking his head in mock dismay. "That is a crime against cinema." "I have seen parts of it," Deanna protested. "It was just never really on my radar." "We are fixing this," Owen declared. "Movie night at my place. This Friday, I will provide the snacks." Deanna agreed, trying to ignore the way her heart raced at the prospect. It was just a friendly movie night between neighbors. Nothing to get excited about. Friday arrived, and Deanna changed her outfit 3 times before settling on jeans and a casual sweater. She did not want to look like she was trying too hard, even though she absolutely was. She knocked on Owen's door at exactly 7 o'clock, holding a bottle of wine she had picked up on the way home from work. Owen's apartment was bigger than hers, with an open layout and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city. But what caught Deanna's attention was how tastefully decorated it was. The furniture was modern but comfortable, and there were personal touches everywhere. Framed photographs on the walls, books stacked on the coffee table, a vintage record player in the corner. "This is beautiful," Deanna said, looking around with professional appreciation. "Did you do this yourself?" "Guilty," Owen admitted. "I spent way too much time browsing furniture stores when I first moved in, but I wanted it to feel like home." "You have a good eye," Deanna said sincerely. "The color scheme is perfect, and the way you have arranged everything creates a great flow." Owen looked pleased by the compliment. "Coming from an actual designer, I will take that as high praise. Come on, the movie is all set up." They settled onto his couch with bowls of popcorn and candy. Owen had dimmed the lights, creating a cozy atmosphere that felt almost intimate. As the movie played, Deanna found herself acutely aware of how close they were sitting, their shoulders almost touching. The movie was as charming as everyone had always told her it would be. She laughed at the witty dialogue and found herself getting invested in the romance between Wesley and Buttercup. But she was also distracted by Owen's presence beside her. She could smell his cologne, something woody and subtle, and occasionally their hands would brush when they both reached for popcorn at the same time. "So, verdict?" Owen asked when the credits rolled. "You were right," Deanna admitted. "It is a great movie. I should have watched it years ago." "I am always right," Owen said with a teasing grin. "The sooner you accept that, the easier our friendship will be." Friendship. The word should have been reassuring, but instead it left Deanna feeling slightly deflated. She pushed the feeling aside and helped Owen clean up the empty bowls and glasses. "I should probably get going," she said, glancing at the time. It was past 11, later than she had realized. "Or," Owen said, and there was something hesitant in his voice, "you could stay for one more drink. If you want, no pressure." Deanna knew she should say no. She had work in the morning, and she was already feeling things she probably should not be feeling for her neighbor. But when she looked at Owen, at the hopeful expression on his face, she found herself nodding. One more drink sounds nice. They moved to his balcony, which overlooked the street below. The city lights sparkled in the distance, and the cool night air felt refreshing after the warmth of the apartment. Owen poured them each a glass of wine, and they stood side by side, looking out at the view. "Can I ask you something?" Deanna said after a moment of comfortable silence. "Sure," Owen replied. "You mentioned you run a company. What kind of company?" Owen was quiet for a beat too long. "It is a consulting firm. We work with businesses to help them streamline their operations and increase profitability." "Not exactly thrilling stuff." "It sounds important," Deanna said, "and probably more interesting than you are making it sound." Owen laughed. "Maybe. I just do not like to talk about work too much. It has a way of taking over every conversation if I let it." Deanna could understand that. She had met plenty of people who defined themselves entirely by their careers, and it always felt limiting. She appreciated that Owen seemed to want more balance in his life. "Well, for what it is worth, I think you have done a good job of keeping things separate," she said. "You are more than just your job." "So are you," Owen said, turning to look at her. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "You are talented and funny and kind, and I am really glad you moved in next door." Deanna felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I am glad too," she said softly. For a moment she thought Owen might kiss her. He leaned in slightly, and she found herself doing the same, drawn by some invisible force. But then his phone buzzed loudly in his pocket, shattering the moment. Owen pulled back with an apologetic grimace. "Sorry, I have to check this," he said, glancing at the screen. His expression shifted, becoming more serious. "It is work. I need to take care of something." "Of course," Deanna said, trying to hide her disappointment. "I should head home anyway. Thanks for the movie and the wine." "Any time," Owen said, but he seemed distracted now, his attention already shifting to whatever crisis awaited him on his phone. Diana let herself out, her emotions a tangled mess. Part of her was frustrated by the interruption, but another part was relieved. Getting involved with her neighbor would be complicated, especially when she was still trying to establish herself in this new city. She needed to focus on her career, not on developing feelings for a man who was probably out of her league anyway. The next few weeks were busy for both of them. Deanna was assigned to a major project at work, a complete redesign of a boutique hotel downtown. It was the kind of opportunity she had been dreaming of, but it also meant long hours and tight deadlines. She barely saw Owen except in passing, and their Saturday coffee dates fell by the wayside. She missed him more than she wanted to admit. The building felt emptier without their regular interactions, and she found herself listening for the sound of his footsteps in the hallway. But she threw herself into her work, determined to prove herself. The hotel project was going well until it was not. Diana had poured her heart into the design, creating something she was genuinely proud of. But when she presented it to the clients, they tore it apart. They wanted something more traditional, more safe. Everything Diana had proposed was too bold, too risky. She left the meeting feeling crushed. Patricia tried to be encouraging, telling her that this was part of the process and that they would revise the designs together. But Diana could not shake the feeling that she had failed. She made it back to her apartment building on autopilot, her mind replaying every criticism the clients had thrown at her. She was so lost in her thoughts that she did not notice Owen standing by the mailboxes until he called her name. "Diana, are you okay?" She looked up and felt her carefully maintained composure crumble. Tears pricked at her eyes and she tried to blink them back, not wanting to fall apart in front of him. "Bad day at work," she managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. Owen's expression softened with concern. "Come on," he said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Let me make you some tea." Deanna wanted to protest, to insist she was fine, but the truth was she did not want to be alone right now. She nodded and followed him to his apartment. Owen moved around his kitchen with practiced efficiency, filling a kettle and pulling out mugs. Deanna sat at his kitchen island, feeling exhausted and defeated. When he handed her a steaming cup of chamomile tea, she wrapped her hands around it gratefully. "Want to talk about it?" Owen asked, settling onto the stool beside her. Deanna told him everything. The months of work she had put into the hotel project, the vision she had for transforming the space, and the client's harsh rejection of her ideas. Owen listened without interrupting, his full attention on her. "I know it is just part of the job," Deanna said, wiping at her eyes. "But it feels personal, you know. Like they were not just rejecting my designs, but rejecting me." "I do know," Owen said. "When you pour your heart into something and people do not see the value, it hurts." But Deanna, From what you have told me about your work, you are incredibly talented. One group of clients not understanding your vision does not change that." "How can you say that?" Deanna asked. "You have never even seen my work." "Show me," Owen said simply. Deanna hesitated, then pulled out her tablet from her bag. She brought up the renderings she had created for the hotel, the designs that had been so thoroughly criticized just hours earlier. Owen studied them carefully, zooming in on details and asking questions about her choices. "This is brilliant," he said finally. "The way you have used color and texture to create distinct zones while maintaining a cohesive aesthetic, and this lighting design is innovative. Deanna, this is really impressive work." Hearing him say that, seeing the genuine admiration in his eyes, made some of the hurt ease. "You really think so?" "I know so," Owen said firmly. "Those clients are idiots if they cannot see it. But you will revise, you will find a way to bridge your vision with their concerns, and it will still be something you can be proud of. Because you are that good." Diana felt fresh tears well up, but this time they were from gratitude rather than despair. "Thank you," she whispered. "I really needed to hear that." Owen reached over and squeezed her hand. "Anytime, that is what friends are for." There was that word again, friends. But the way Owen was looking at her, the tenderness in his touch, suggested something more. Deanna felt her heart race, and suddenly she was very aware of how close they were sitting. "Owen," she started, not sure what she was going to say, but before she could continue, her phone rang. It was Patricia, probably calling to discuss next steps for the project. Deanna reluctantly pulled away to answer it. The call took longer than expected. By the time she hung up, the moment had passed. Owen was cleaning up the kitchen, and the atmosphere had shifted back to something safer, more neutral. "I should let you get back to work," Deanna said, standing up. "But thank you for the tea and for listening. It helped more than you know." "I am always here if you need to talk," Owen said, "about work or anything else." Diana went back to her own apartment feeling lighter than she had all day. She revised her designs late into the night, finding a balance between her vision and what the clients wanted. When she presented the new version the following week, they loved it. Patricia pulled her aside afterward to congratulate her on handling the feedback so professionally. Deanna wished she could tell Owen to share this victory with him, but he seemed to be working even longer hours than she was. She barely saw him anymore, and when she did, he looked tired and stressed. She wanted to ask what was going on, but she also did not want to pry. They were friends, but there were still boundaries. One Saturday morning in early autumn, Deanna was surprised to see Owen at the bakery, sitting at their usual table with 2 coffees already waiting. She had not been there in weeks, but apparently he had remembered her order. "I was hoping you would show up," Owen said when she approached. "I know we have both been busy, but I missed our coffee dates." "I missed them too," Deanna admitted, sliding into the seat across from him. The coffee was still hot, which meant he had not been waiting long. Or he had timed it perfectly. They fell back into their easy rhythm, talking about everything and nothing. Owen told her about a disastrous business dinner where the restaurant had lost their reservation, and they had ended up eating pizza in the conference room. Deanna shared stories about her eccentric co-workers and the demanding clients she had been dealing with. "I have been meaning to ask you something," Owen said as they were finishing their second round of coffee. "There is this gala next weekend. It is a charity event for children's hospitals. I have to go for work, and I was wondering if you would want to come with me, as my date." Diana's heart skipped. "As your date?" "Yes," Owen said, and there was vulnerability in his eyes that she had not seen before. "I have been wanting to ask you out properly for weeks now, but the timing never seemed right. And I know a work gala is not the most romantic first date, but I would really like you to be there with me." Diana felt a smile spreading across her face. I would love to. The relief on Owen's face was palpable. Yeah, Diana confirmed. Though I have to warn you, I have nothing appropriate to wear to a gala. Then we will go shopping, Owen said. My treat. I cannot let you do that, Diana protested. You can and you will, Owen said with a grin. Consider it part of the date. Besides, I want to see you in something stunning. Give me that. Diana laughed, feeling giddy in a way she had not felt in years. Okay, but I am buying you dinner in return. Deal. They went shopping that afternoon, hitting boutiques Diana had only ever window shopped at before. Owen waited patiently while she tried on dress after dress, offering opinions when asked, but mostly just watching her with an expression that made her feel beautiful. She finally found the perfect dress in a small shop tucked away on a side street. It was a deep emerald green that complemented her skin tone, with a fitted bodice and a flowing skirt that moved like water. When she stepped out of the dressing room, Owen actually stood up from his chair. That is the one, he said, his voice slightly hoarse. Diana, you look incredible. She felt herself blush under his gaze. You think so? I know so. Owen insisted on buying the dress despite her protests, along with a pair of heels that were probably worth more than her rent. Diana felt overwhelmed by his generosity, but he brushed off her thanks with a smile. I just want you to feel amazing, he said. Because you are. The week leading up to the gala passed in a blur of anticipation. Diana found herself counting down the days, more excited than she had been about anything in a long time. She got her hair done the day before, and on the night of the event, she spent hours getting ready. When she finally looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress fit perfectly, highlighting her figure without being too revealing. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her makeup was subtle but elegant. She felt like a princess from one of those fairy tales her mother used to read to her. Owen knocked on her door at exactly 7 o'clock. When she opened it, she watched his eyes widen. Wow, he breathed. Diana, you are absolutely breathtaking. You clean up pretty well yourself, Diana managed to say, though her mouth had gone dry at the sight of him in a tailored tuxedo. He looked like he had stepped out of a magazine, all sharp lines and confident elegance. Owen offered her his arm, and they headed down to the waiting car. Diana had expected a taxi, but instead, there was a sleek black town car with a driver holding the door open. Owen, this is too much, she said as they slid into the leather seats. Nothing is too much for tonight, Owen said, taking her hand. I want it to be perfect. The gala was held at one of the city's most prestigious hotels, the ballroom decorated with thousands of twinkling lights and elaborate floral arrangements. Diana felt like she had stepped into another world, one of champagne and designer gowns and string quartets. She recognized a few faces from magazines and news articles, people whose names were synonymous with wealth and influence. Owen, she whispered as they checked their coats, you did not tell me this was going to be so fancy. I feel way out of my depth here. You belong here just as much as anyone else, Owen said firmly. More than most of them, honestly. Just be yourself. That is all I want. They entered the ballroom together, and Diana became aware of people turning to look at them, or more specifically, to look at Owen. There were whispers and subtle gestures, people clearly recognizing him. Diana felt a flutter of unease in her stomach. A distinguished older man approached them almost immediately, his smile wide and welcoming. Owen Sinclair, good to see you here. And who is this lovely young woman? This is Diana Kelley, Owen said, his hand resting protectively on the small of her back. Diana, this is Robert Morrison. He is on the board of the hospital we are supporting tonight. Deanna shook his hand, trying to project confidence she did not quite feel. Robert engaged them in conversation about the charity and the evening's auction, but Deanna noticed the way he deferred to Owen, the respect in his tone. It was more than simple politeness. It was the kind of deference people showed to someone important. As the evening progressed, Deanna became increasingly aware that Owen was not just another guest at this gala. People approached him constantly, seeking his opinion or his support for various initiatives. Business cards were discreetly exchanged, and there were references to deals and investments that suggested Owen's company was more than just a small consulting firm. During dinner, Deanna found herself seated at a table with several other couples, all of whom seemed to know exactly who Owen was. The woman next to her, dripping in diamonds and designer labels, leaned over conspiratorially. "You are so lucky to be here with Owen Sinclair," she said. "He is one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. Do you know how many women would kill to be in your shoes right now?" Deanna forced a smile, but her mind was racing. Eligible bachelor. What exactly did Owen do that made him so well known in these circles? She waited until they were dancing, swaying to a slow song played by the live orchestra, before she brought it up. "Owen, I feel like there is something you have not told me," she said quietly. "Everyone here knows you, and not just casually. They treat you like you are someone really important." She felt Owen tense slightly. "Deanna, who are you really?" she asked, pulling back to look at him. "And please do not say you run a consulting firm. I think we are past that now." Owen sighed, his jaw tightening. "You are right. I have not been completely honest with you. I do run a company, but it is not a consulting firm. I am the CEO of Sinclair Industries. We are a major player in commercial real estate development. I have been in the business section of every major newspaper, and apparently, according to some magazine I did not even know existed, one of the city's most eligible bachelors." Deanna stopped dancing, stepping back from him. The people around them continued to move, but she felt frozen. "You are a CEO of a major company, and you did not think to mention this." "I wanted to," Owen said, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. "Deanna, please let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you have been lying to me this whole time." Deanna could feel tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to cry here, surrounded by all these wealthy strangers. "I did not lie," Owen said urgently, his voice low so others would not hear. "I just did not correct your assumptions. And I had good reasons for that." "Good reasons?" Deanna felt anger bubbling up inside her, mixing with hurt and embarrassment. What possible good reason could you have for hiding something like this? Owen ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated and miserable. "Because every time someone finds out who I am, it changes things. They start seeing dollar signs instead of seeing me. I wanted you to get to know me, the real me, without all the baggage that comes with my name and my money." Was that so wrong? Deanna wanted to say yes, that it was absolutely wrong to build a relationship on omissions and half-truths. But looking at Owen's face, seeing the genuine pain there, she found her anger wavering. "I need some air," she said finally. "I need to think." She made her way through the crowd, ignoring the curious glances directed her way. She found a balcony off one of the side hallways and stepped out into the cool night air, grateful for the solitude. Her mind was spinning. Owen Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Industries. She vaguely remembered seeing that name on buildings around the city, on construction sites and development projects. He was not just wealthy. He was extraordinarily wealthy. The kind of wealthy that existed in a completely different stratosphere from her world. And he had been her neighbor this whole time, assembling her furniture and sharing coffee like he was just a regular guy. She heard the balcony door open behind her and knew without turning that it was Owen. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "You are right. I should have told you sooner. I was selfish, wanting to keep this thing between us separate from all the complications that come with who I am. But I hurt you, and I never wanted to do that." Deanna turned to face him. "Why did you move into that apartment building? Someone like you could afford to live anywhere in the city. A penthouse, a mansion, whatever you wanted." "Because I wanted a normal life," Owen said simply. "Or at least as normal as I could get. My childhood was comfortable but isolated. As an adult, I have spent years in the public eye, always having to be on, always being judged. That apartment building, that neighborhood, it let me just be Owen for a while. Not the CEO, not the Sinclair heir, just me." "And what about me?" Deanna asked. "Was I just part of your fantasy of normal life? The girl next door to play house with?" "No," Owen said vehemently, closing the distance between them. "Deanna, what I feel for you has nothing to do with wanting a normal life and everything to do with who you are. You are talented and strong and beautiful. You make me laugh. You challenge me. When I am with you, I feel more myself than I have in years. That is real. My feelings for you are completely real." Diana wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly, but there was still a wall of hurt and confusion between them. "I do not know if I can do this," she whispered. "Your world and mine, they are so different. I saw how those people looked at me tonight, like I did not belong, like I was some gold digger who managed to snag a billionaire." "I do not care what they think," Owen said. "The only opinion that matters to me is yours. Tell me what you need. Tell me how I can fix this." Deanna looked at him, really looked at him. Despite the expensive tuxedo and the gala and the revelation about his wealth, she could still see the man who had helped her assemble furniture. The man who had held her while she cried about work. The man who had looked at her designs with genuine appreciation and understanding. "I need time," she said finally, "to process all of this, to figure out what I want." Owen nodded, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I will be here when you are ready." "If you are ready." They went back inside, but the magic of the evening had evaporated. Owen arranged for the car to take Deanna home early, and she spent the ride staring out the window, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The next few days were torture. Deanna threw herself into work, but she could not stop thinking about Owen. She missed him with an intensity that surprised her. But every time she thought about going to talk to him, fear held her back. Fear that she was not enough for his world, fear that the differences between them were too vast to overcome. She confided in her younger sister, Emma, during one of their regular video calls. "So let me get this straight," Emma said, her face filling the laptop screen. "You met an amazing guy, you clearly have feelings for each other, but you are freaking out because he turned out to be rich. Deanna, I love you, but that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard." "It is not just that he is rich," Deanna protested. "He lied to me. Or at least omitted the truth, which is basically the same thing." "He explained why he did it," Emma pointed out. "And honestly, it makes sense. Can you imagine how hard it must be to date when you are that wealthy? Everyone wanting something from you, never knowing if people like you or for your money. He wanted you to know the real him first." "But what if I cannot handle his world?" Deanna asked. "What if I do not fit in?" "Who cares if you fit in?" Emma said bluntly. "The question is, do you love him? Because if you do, then you figure the rest out together. That is what relationships are." Diana thought about Emma's words long after their call ended. Did she love Owen? She had been so careful not to let herself fall too hard, knowing that getting involved with her neighbor could be messy. But somewhere along the way, between coffee dates and late-night conversations and the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world, she had fallen anyway. She loved him. And that terrified her. but being without him terrified her more. Diana made up her mind. The next morning, she woke up early and got ready carefully, choosing an outfit that made her feel confident. She practiced what she wanted to say, rehearsing the words until they felt right. Then she walked next door and knocked. Owen opened it almost immediately, as if he had been waiting. He looked terrible, with dark circles under his eyes and his hair unkempt. Diana felt a pang of guilt. He had clearly been just as miserable as she had been. "Diana," he said, and her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "Can I come in?" she asked. Owen stepped aside wordlessly, and Diana entered the apartment that had become so familiar to her. She turned to face him, her heart pounding. "I have been thinking," she started, "about what you said at the gala, about wanting me to know the real you, and I realized that I do know the real you. The man who helped a stressed neighbor with furniture. The man who listened when I needed someone to talk to. The man who made me laugh and challenged me and made me feel seen. That man exists regardless of how much money he has or what his job title is." "Diana," Owen began, but she held up a hand. "Let me finish. I was hurt and scared. Hurt because I felt like you had not trusted me enough to tell me the truth. And scared because your world is so far removed from mine that I did not know if I could fit into it. But I realized something. I do not need to fit into your world. We need to build our own world together. One where we can just be Owen and Diana without all the complications and expectations." Owen crossed the distance between them in 2 long strides, his hands coming up to cup her face. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying I want to try," Diana said, her voice shaking slightly. "I am saying that I have feelings for you, strong feelings, and I do not want to walk away from this because I am scared, but I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Owen said. "No more secrets. No more omissions. If we are going to do this, I need complete honesty, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." "I promise," Owen said solemnly. "Complete honesty from here on out, starting with this. I am completely in love with you, Diana Kelley. I have been for weeks. And I will do whatever it takes to make this work." Diana felt her breath catch. "You love me." "I love you," Owen confirmed. "And I should have said it sooner, but I was afraid I had already ruined everything." "You have not ruined anything," Diana said, tears streaming down her face now, but they were happy tears. "And I love you too. I think I have loved you since you helped me build that ridiculous bookshelf." Owen laughed, a sound of pure joy, and then he was kissing her. It was everything Diana had imagined and more. His lips were soft but insistent, his hands gentle as they threaded through her hair. She melted into him, all the hurt and confusion of the past days dissolving in the warmth of his embrace. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Owen rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he said. "Proper dates, meeting each other's families, building something real that is not based on proximity and convenience but on genuine love and commitment." "I want that too," Diana said. "But maybe we can also keep the spontaneous coffee dates and movie nights." "Absolutely," Owen agreed. "Those are non-negotiable." They spent the rest of the morning on his couch, wrapped in each other's arms, talking about everything. Owen told her more about his company, about the pressures and responsibilities that came with running a major corporation. Diana shared her dreams for her career, the projects she wanted to tackle, and the impact she wanted to make through design. "I want to support you in whatever you want to do," Owen said. "If that means continuing at your current firm or starting your own business someday, whatever makes you happy." "Right now, what makes me happy is being here with you," Diana said honestly. Over the following months, they fell into a rhythm that worked for them. Owen was often busy with work, traveling for meetings and dealing with the demands of running a multi-million-dollar company. But he always made time for Deanna, carving out evenings and weekends to spend together. They explored the city, trying new restaurants and visiting museums. They stayed in, cooking dinner together and watching movies. They learned each other's quirks and habits, the little things that made them who they were. Deanna met Owen's family at Thanksgiving, a nerve-wracking experience that turned out to be surprisingly pleasant. His parents were warm and welcoming, clearly delighted that their youngest son had found someone who made him happy. His older brothers, Marcus and Peter, teased him mercilessly, but were kind to Deanna, treating her like she had always been part of the family. Owen met Deanna's family at Christmas, making the drive with her to her small hometown. Her parents fell in love with him instantly, charmed by his manners and the obvious way he doted on their daughter. Emma pulled Deanna aside at one point and whispered, "If you do not marry him, I will." The relationship was not without its challenges. There were times when Deanna felt overwhelmed by Owen's wealth. Uncomfortable with the expensive gifts he wanted to shower her with, or the exclusive events he was expected to attend. There were times when Owen struggled to balance his work responsibilities with his personal life, when Deanna went days without seeing him because he was consumed by some crisis at the company. But they worked through each challenge together, communicating openly and honestly like they had promised. They learned to compromise, to support each other, to be partners in the truest sense of the word. The hotel project that had caused Deanna so much stress turned out to be a huge success. The redesign was featured in several major design publications, and Deanna's reputation in the industry grew. She received offers from other firms, bigger names with more resources. But she stayed where she was, loyal to Patricia and the team that had taken a chance on her. Owen continued to run Sinclair Industries with the same dedication and integrity that had made the company successful. But he also started delegating more, trusting his management team to handle things so he could have more work-life balance. He wanted to be present for the life he was building with Deanna, not just a passenger passing through. 1 year after they had first met, Owen asked Deanna to move in with him. Not in his apartment next door, but in a beautiful brownstone he had purchased in their neighborhood. It had space for both of them, a home office for Owen and a dedicated studio for Deanna to work on personal design projects. They spent months making it theirs, choosing furniture and paint colors and arguing good-naturedly about artwork. 2 years after they had first met, Owen proposed. He did it at the bakery where they had shared so many Saturday morning coffees, getting down on one knee in front of startled customers and amused staff. The ring was stunning, an emerald surrounded by diamonds that reminded Deanna of the dress she had worn to that first gala. "Deanna Kelley, you are my best friend, my partner, the love of my life," Owen said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I want to spend every day for the rest of my life making you as happy as you make me. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Deanna said through tears. "Yes, of course, yes." The bakery erupted in applause, and the owner brought out free pastries for everyone to celebrate. It was perfect, exactly the kind of proposal Deanna would have chosen for herself. Intimate and meaningful, rooted in the small moments that had built their relationship. They were married in the spring, in a ceremony that blended both of their worlds. The venue was elegant but not ostentatious, filled with flowers and personal touches that Deanna had designed herself. The guest list included Owen's business associates and society friends, but also Deanna's art school classmates and the neighbors from their building who had watched their relationship unfold. Deanna walked down the aisle in a dress she had helped design, custom-made to her specifications. When she reached Owen and saw the tears streaming down his face, she knew she had made the right choice. This was her person, her home, her forever. Their vows were personal and heartfelt. Owen promised to always be honest with her, to support her dreams, and to never take her for granted. Deanna promised to be his partner through all of life's challenges, to love him not for what he had but for who he was, and to always laugh at his terrible action movie choices. The reception was a celebration of love and joy. They danced until their feet hurt, laughed until their faces ached, and basked in the happiness of being surrounded by everyone they loved. When it came time for toasts, Emma stood up with tears in her eyes. "I have watched my sister chase her dreams with determination and courage," Emma said. "But I have never seen her as happy as she has been since she met Owen. He brings out the best in her, and she brings out the best in him. They are proof that sometimes the best things in life happen when you least expect them." To Deanna and Owen. To Deanna and Owen, the room echoed. Life after the wedding was full and rich. Deanna eventually did start her own design firm, with Owen's encouragement and support. She specialized in affordable, beautiful design for small businesses and young families, wanting to make good design accessible to everyone. The firm thrived, and Deanna found immense satisfaction in the work she was doing. Owen continued to run Sinclair Industries, but he also became more involved in philanthropy. He and Deanna established a foundation that supported arts education in underprivileged communities, combining their passions to make a real difference. They attended charity galas together, but Deanna no longer felt out of place. She had found her confidence, her voice, and her place in Owen's world, just as he had found his in hers. 3 years after their wedding, Deanna discovered she was pregnant. She told Owen on a Saturday morning at their favorite bakery, the same place where he had proposed. She slid a tiny pair of baby shoes across the table, watching as his eyes went wide with realization. "Are you serious?" he breathed. "I am serious," Deanna confirmed, laughing at his shocked expression. Owen let out a whoop of joy that startled everyone in the bakery. He pulled Deanna into his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. Other customers smiled at their obvious happiness, and the owner brought out more free pastries. Their daughter was born in the winter, a perfect, tiny human they named Lily Rose. She had Deanna's dark hair and Owen's blue eyes, and from the moment they laid eyes on her, both parents were completely smitten. Watching Owen with their daughter, seeing the gentle way he held her and the wonder in his eyes, Deanna felt her heart expand with love. This man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions turned to mush for a 7-pound baby. He changed diapers without complaint, got up for middle-of-the-night feedings, and could be found most evenings singing terrible lullabies while pacing the nursery. 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Noah James. Their family felt complete, the brownstone filled with laughter and chaos and so much love. Deanna scaled back her work hours to spend more time with the children, and Owen did the same. They wanted to be present for the small moments, the first steps and first words, and all the tiny miracles of watching their children grow. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Owen arranged for the kids to spend the night with his parents so he and Deanna could have a date night. He took her back to the apartment building where they had first met, now owned by Sinclair Industries, but still rented out to regular tenants. They stood in front of the door that had once been Deanna's apartment, and Owen pulled out a key. "I may have pulled some strings," he admitted with a sheepish grin. "It is empty right now between tenants. I thought we could revisit where it all started." Deanna laughed, delighted by the romantic gesture. They went inside, and despite the empty rooms, she could still see echoes of the life she had lived here. The spot where her couch had been, where Owen had helped her assemble that bookshelf. the kitchen where she had made countless cups of coffee before rushing off to work. "You ever regret it?" Owen asked, pulling her close. "Saying yes to that weird neighbor who kept showing up with tools and movie recommendations." "Not for a single second," Deanna said honestly. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and our kids and this crazy, beautiful life we have built together." "I love you, Deanna Sinclair," Owen said. "Thank you for taking a chance on me." "I love you too," Deanna replied. "Thank you for being the kind of person worth taking a chance on." They kissed in that empty apartment, surrounded by memories and possibility. And as they held each other, Diana thought about the day she had moved in next door to a stranger who would become her everything. She had been nervous and uncertain about the future, but also hopeful. Ready for whatever came next. Life had exceeded every hope and dream she had ever had. Not because she had fallen in love with a CEO, or because of the wealth and opportunities that came with being part of the Sinclair family, but because she had found a partner who saw her, valued her, and loved her for exactly who she was. Someone who made her laugh and held her when she cried and was willing to do the work to build something real and lasting. Years later, when their children were old enough to understand, Diana and Owen would tell them the story of how they met. How their mother had moved into an apartment not knowing the man next door would change her entire life. How their father had fallen in love with a woman who saw past his wealth to the person underneath. How two strangers became neighbors, then friends, then lovers, and finally, a family. It was not a perfect story. There had been misunderstandings and hurt feelings and moments of doubt, but it was a real story, built on honesty and communication and a willingness to grow together. And in the end, that was what mattered most. Deanna and Owen grew old together in that brownstone, watching their children grow up and have families of their own. They celebrated successes and weathered failures, always side by side. The fortune that had once seemed like such an obstacle became simply a fact of their lives, neither defining them nor dividing them. On their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren, Owen raised a glass. "To the woman who moved in next door and stole my heart," he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "To 50 years of love, laughter, and adventure, and to however many more years we have left, because I still am not done being amazed by you." Deanna raised her own glass, tears streaming down her weathered face. "To the neighbor who became my forever," she replied. "I would do it all again in a heartbeat." And as their family cheered and the celebration continued around them, Deanna and Owen shared a look that spoke of decades of shared history, of inside jokes and quiet moments, and a love that had only deepened with time. The kind of look that only people who have truly spent a lifetime together can share. It had started with a moving truck and a stack of boxes, with two strangers in a hallway exchanging pleasantries. But it had become so much more. A partnership, a family, a love story for the ages. Deanna had moved next door to a CEO, not knowing that her neighbor would become her forever. But forever was exactly what she got, and she would not have changed a single moment of it.